So, you're PCSing to Camp Pendleton and you're thinking about buying a home. Well, I have 3 tips that I wish I had known when I was transferred to Camp Pendleton back in the day. So you're going to want to make sure that you watch this video. Hi, I'm Michael Wynn, a retired Marine officer and a local realtor with Century 21 Award. And I'd like to welcome you to my channel. So you're PCSing to beautiful Camp Pendleton and you're thinking about buying a home. Well, I have 3 tips for you that I think will make this decision much easier. In the past 17, almost 18 years, I've helped a ton of Marines buy and sell homes in the Camp Pendleton area. And I think you're going to find this information very valuable. My first tip that I'd like to share with you is all about picking the right house. And there's a lot of things that go into that. Timing, location, commute, the amount of money that you have saved up. These are all areas that you and your prospective realtor need to discuss. When I meet with a Marine or a sailor who's thinking about buying a home in the Camp Pendleton area, I always ask them, how long do you plan on staying and what are your plans with the home? As you know, the real estate market goes up and down. Currently, prices are pretty high. And if you're looking at coming in and only staying for 1-2 years, then maybe right now is not the best time for you to buy. However, if you're planning on buying a home and keeping it, and even if you do PCS again in 3 years, you plan on renting it, then I think you're going to be fine. Because the worst thing in the world is to buy in an up market and then the market turns and you need to PCS and now you're upside down. I don't want that to happen to you. So you really have to figure out, I'm buying a home, am I going to do an investment? Am I going to rent it for a few years? I think I'm going to come back to Camp Pendleton. Well, if that's the case, then buying a home is a smart decision for you. The next advice that I give to them is to determine the type of house. You don't want oddball houses. You don't want homes that are back up to busy roads. You want a newer home. You want something that when it comes time to either sell it or rent it, that it will appeal to the masses. Also, you don't want a home that you're going to have to put a ton of money into, especially if you're going to be leaving it in 3 years. So we want to make sure we got a good area. We want to make sure the home is not an oddball home. It's a home that appeals to the masses. And we're going to want to make sure it's something that's pretty move-in ready. The next thing that I do is discuss with them where are they going to be stationed at Camp Pendleton. Now, Camp Pendleton is 200 square miles of oceanfront in between San Clemente and Oceanside, and it has 7 gates. And so you're going to want to figure out where you're at within the base, and that's also going to determine your commute. As well as if your spouse is working, where do they have to commute to? Now, when I was here, I was stationed a lot at Camp Pogus, which is smack in the middle of the base. Like I said before, it's 7 gates at Camp Pendleton. So you're going to want to figure out where you want to be so you can figure out the best commute. Now, don't go by miles. Here, we don't use miles to determine our commute. We're looking at time. And everyone's time, if you're coming out of Riverside County, going through Fallbrook, your commute is going to be a little bit longer if you're just jetting up the 5 from Oceanside. So we want to know where you're going to be on board the base and where your spouse is going to be working if they work too. To the north of Camp Pendleton, you have Orange County. And Orange County is pretty exclusive, and the price per square foot there is much higher. When I first PCS to Camp Pendleton, I lived in San Clemente. San Clemente is a wonderful city, lots of great restaurants and shops. It's kind of a beachy town, and the schools are good. But again, as you can see here in this slide, prices are rather high in that area. To the south of Camp Pendleton, you have the Tri-City area, which comprises of Oceanside, Vista, and Carlsbad. Out of the three, Oceanside is the most affordable. Now, Oceanside has had a bad rap, but I can tell you in the last 10 years, Oceanside has made major leaps and bounds. It's much safer. There's booming businesses downtown, restaurants, breweries. Now, the one negative I would say about Oceanside is that the school systems are not the best in North County, San Diego. One of the positive things about Oceanside is your commute. Your commute is going to be the easiest from Oceanside. Next, you have Vista, which is a little bit more expensive than Oceanside. And typically with Vista, you're going to get a little bit more land. Now, Vista is kind of a hit and miss area. You can have fantastic house here and then a horrible house right next door. Their building codes and zoning, I don't understand. But there's some fabulous houses. Now, their school systems are about the same as Oceanside. A negative is you're going to be commuting a little bit further because you're going east along the 78 corridor. Now, as far as Carlsbad goes, it is by far the most expensive. Carlsbad is almost double the price. A lot of officers and staff NCOs really prefer this area if they can afford it. Carlsbad boasts some amazing downtown village area with great restaurants and stores. Their school system is excellent, and it is much closer to San Diego than, say, Oceanside. Further east, you're going to run into Fallbrook and Bonsall. Now, both of these areas can be rather rural. However, there are some nice communities within it. Fallbrook has a very quaint little downtown, but if you're going to want to do serious shopping, you're either going to have to go to Temecula, or you have to go into Oceanside, or you have to go to Escondido. The school systems out there are pretty good, and like I said earlier, Bonsall is well known for being able to handle kids with special needs. Now, your housing expenses in Fallbrook is going to be higher than it is in Oceanside or Vista. To the northeast of Camp Pendleton, you have Riverside County. Now, a lot of the Marines and sailors that I work with will start out looking for a home in North San Diego County. And then they'll realize how much more home they can get in places like Temecula, Marietta, Menifee, or Wildomar. The price per square foot is drastically different in Riverside County. Additionally, what surprised me when I first started selling homes is how great the school systems are. Temecula and Marietta have amazing school districts. On top of that, as an added bonus, you're in beautiful wine country. Now, the flip side of that, the negative, is once you go over the hill into Riverside County, the temperature changes dramatically, especially during the summertime. We're looking at about a 10 to 20 degrees difference. What does that mean? That means that your utility bills are going to be higher because you're going to be watering your grass more and you're going to be running your AC pretty constant. The other negative is your commute. There's only 2 gates that take you from Riverside County into Camp Pendleton, and they're a little bit further away than if you were in Oceanside, Vista, or San Clemente. Additionally, the commute home in the evening is rough. There's a lot of people who have moved into Riverside County that commute into San Diego, and the traffic on the 15 North after 3 o'clock can be rather tough. The second thing I'd like to talk to you about is the money that you're going to need in order to buy a home. I know a lot of you are looking at me right now and saying, Mike, we're going to use a VA loan and it requires 0 down payment. And that is true. Okay, but you're still going to require certain cash to have if you're going to purchase a home. When you find a home that you want to buy, the first thing you're going to need to do is put in an earnest money deposit. And normally earnest money deposit is anywhere between 1 to 3% of the purchase price. Now this money goes into an escrow account and stays there and can be applied to your closing costs, or if you were doing a down payment, to your down payment. It does not go directly to the seller. And you can consider it like a security deposit, and also lets the seller know that you're extremely interested and serious about buying their home. The next funds that you need to have available are for the appraisal and for your home inspection. Now the appraiser is going to be ordered by your lender and the VA, and the appraisal fee is going to vary from anywhere from $450 to $650. And you're going to need to put that money up front in order to get that appraisal. What's an appraisal? It's a determination of value, and it's done to support the fact that you say, I'm going to pay so much for a house, and that the bank knows that that house is worth that. The next thing is a home inspection. Now you're probably saying, Mike, do I really need a home inspection? Well, I believe you do. And a home inspection is going to run anywhere from $350 to say $650, depending on the home inspector that you use. And you're going to need that cash up front to pay that home inspector. The next cost that we will see will be your closing costs. Now, closing costs are fees. They don't go in towards the purchase of the house as a down payment does. Now, what type of fees are we looking at? There's everything from escrow to title fees to prepaid points for your loan, prepaid taxes. It's all going to go in together. And we're looking at it being somewhere around 2.5% to 3% of whatever the purchase price is. Now, there's several ways for you to pay your closing costs. The first is for you to pay out of your pocket. The second is to have the seller give you a credit. And the third is to give your lender gives you a credit, which they charge you a slightly higher interest rate. Now, obviously, you have to look at your particular situation. If you have the money to pay your closing costs yourself, then that's the best. But if you don't have it, then what we're going to need is to go out to that seller and ask them for a credit. Now, when you're in a market like where we were 6 months ago, it was a seller's market and sellers were not giving closing costs. Now we're getting into more of a balanced market, and we're seeing sellers give buyers credit for closing costs. And how does that work? Well, let's say your closing costs are going to be $18,000. We'll write an offer, and within the offer we will say, of this purchase price, you're going to credit us $18,000 towards recurring and non-recurring closing costs. Now, the advantage is this, is that it's not coming out of your pocket. However, it is going to increase the cost of the house, and also it's going to make your mortgage a little bit higher, and also it's not going to make your offer as attractive because that's less proceeds that the seller is getting. Finally, you have your VA funding fee. Now, the VA funding fee can be rolled into the loan. Closing costs can't, but the VA funding fee can be part of your loan. So how much is that going to be? That's going to be about 2.5%. And again, they're going to put that on top of your loan. So let's say that your loan again is $600,000 and your VA funding fee is going to be, say, $18,000. So you're actually going to be borrowing $618,000, and that will be part of your loan. The third and final tip that I want to give you is you need to pick the right realtor. What are you going to look for? Well, two things. You want someone who's going to know VA, and you want to know someone who knows the area. As far as the VA product goes, there's a lot of things with a VA loan that most realtors don't understand. A lot of these realtors don't do any transactions with active duty or veterans. So you need someone that knows that VA process. An example, if you're going for a townhouse or a condo, that condo community needs to be certified. If it's not, you can't purchase it. If you're going to buy a home, there are certain things that the VA appraiser is going to look for. They're going to look for damages, things that need to be repaired, leaning fences, missing appliances, holes, or maybe they modified the garage to be an office or another bedroom. These are all no-nos for the VA, and they're going to require to have these things fixed before they're going to make that appraisal official. And they're going to be called lender-required repairs. A lot of sellers don't want that, so we don't want to waste our time. And then there's a stigma out there. Sellers believe that selling to a VA buyer is going to be more difficult and it's going to cost them more money. Why do they believe this? Well, back in the day, sellers had to pay the majority of the closing costs, and there was things that the buyer couldn't pay. A lot of realtors don't understand this, and especially a lot of sellers. So you need a realtor who's going to stand up and say, no, that's not the way it is. The buyers can pay their own closing costs, all with the exception of, say, termite report. Oh, by the way, yes, you do need a termite clearance with a VA loan. You're going to want to make sure that this agent also knows the area. He needs to have a good handle on where on Camp Pendleton you're going to be stationed and how long your commute is going to be. He needs to know the school systems in the area, the hospitals in the area. So you really want to make sure it's someone who is familiar and knows the local area. Another thing that you want to look for is if they are associated with any programs like Navy Federal Credit Union, which has a rewards program, which at closing you will see a cash rebate that varies on the price and the commission that's paid, which you will get that cash at closing if you use one of their approved agents like myself. Now, when you're picking an agent, I don't want you to worry about, well, how am I going to afford to pay this? When you work with a buyer's agent, for the most part, in fact, in my 17 years, I've never had this happen, the buyers don't pay the commission for the realtor. The realtor fees comes from the seller. Now, why is this important to you? Well, imagine if you were going to court. You'd have the plaintiff, you'd have the defendant. They both would have attorneys that are working for them, supporting their best interests. Now, it's very easy for you to drive down the road and see a sign and call, and you'll get the listing agent. That listing agent is going to be more than happy to work with you. But what you're getting is that agent then has to represent you and the seller. And he can't tell the seller certain things, he can't tell you certain things. He's kind of have to be neutral. You want someone who's going to have your best interest. And by having a buyer's agent, that person is going to represent you, and their sole job is to help you get the best deal and support you to make sure everything's right. So it's very important that you select a buyer's agent, and you don't have to worry about the funds because that's going to be given to that agent through the seller. To sum it up, we've gone over 3 things. Finding the right home, understanding how much money you're going to have to bring to the table, and picking the right realtor. I hope you found this information useful, and if you have any questions about what I've covered or any other questions, don't hesitate to give me a call, text me, email me. I'd be glad to help. It would be my honor to help you if you're interested in buying a home in the Camp Pendleton area. If this is your first time here and you want to know more about living and buying real estate in the Oceanside area, then you want to make sure that you subscribe below and hit that notification button. My name is Michael Wynn, and remember, you too can win with Wynn.